A few days ago, I asked you a simple question. Could you see yourself moving into AI governance in Germany? And the result was interesting. Around half of you said, maybe, but I need a clear roadmap. Another 38% of you are already working in IT or data. That immediately told me something. The interest is there. But there is also a lot of confusion around what this career actually looks like. So I started researching it properly. The job titles, companies hiring, salaries, certifications, the EU AI Act, and more importantly, who can realistically make this transition. What I found was much bigger than just another new job title. There is a shift happening in Europe around regulation, risk, and responsibility. And if you already work in IT, cybersecurity, compliance, law, quality, data, HR, or product management, you may already have part of the foundation companies are looking for. You may not need to restart your career, you may need to reposition it. Now this topic is deep, so this video is little bit longer than usual. But stay with me because towards the end, I will give you a practical 6 months roadmap you can actually use to judge whether this field makes sense for you. And by the way, if you are new here, I am Shailendra. I have been living in Germany for over 14 years and I share practical tips to help expats live, work and settle in Germany. So before we talk about salaries and jobs, let's understand what AI governance actually means. Take a simple example. A company starts using software to screen job applications. Hundreds of CVs come in. The system ranks candidates and recommends who should move forward. Sounds efficient until someone asks, how was that decision actually made? Could certain candidates be treated unfairly? Can the company explain the result? Can a human override it? And if something goes wrong, who takes the responsibility? And that is where AI governance comes in. You are not necessarily building the system. You are making sure the company understands what it is using, what can go wrong, and who owns the decision. That can mean reviewing new systems, checking suppliers, classifying risks, creating internal rules, documenting decisions, and deciding where a human still needs to stay involved. Inside a large company, this becomes messy very quickly. HR may be using one system, finance another, marketing has introduced something new, customer service has its own tool, IT knows some of them, compliance knows others, and nobody has the complete picture. That alone creates a problem because you cannot control something if you do not even know it exists. Why the EU AI Act matters? The EU AI Act has changed the conversation. Different uses now carry different levels of responsibility. Some practices are prohibited, others require transparency, and some systems can fall into a high risk category. Recruitment is one example. Credit decisions, education, healthcare, migration, critical infrastructure. The deadlines are being phased in. But companies cannot wait until the final date and then suddenly ask, which systems are we using? A large organization may already have dozens of tools, pilots, and third-party solutions spread across different departments. Someone has to identify them. Someone has to classify the risk. Someone has to decide who owns the responsibility, and someone has to make sure the documentation matches what is actually happening. Because when something fails, the conversation usually looks like this. Business says IT approved it. IT says the vendor supplied it. The vendor says the customer configured it. Legal asks who signed off. And suddenly everybody becomes very interested in governance. That is the real reason this field matters. Not because the title sounds new, because responsibility has to sit somewhere. What would you actually do in the job? The exact role depends on the company. But the work may include reviewing new use cases, maintaining an internal system inventory, assessing risk, checking suppliers, looking at personal data, defining controls, preparing impact assessments, supporting audits, writing policies, and documenting why something was approved. But I think the biggest skill is translation. You need to understand what technical teams are saying. You need to explain risk to management. And you need to turn regulations into something the business can actually follow. Because business will say, we need this live next month. The technical team says, it works. And governance asks, fine. But what happens when it does not? That one question explains the profession quite well. Now the real job titles in Germany. This is where many people search too narrowly. They type AI Governance Manager Germany and stop there. Do not do that. You may see titles such as AI Governance Analyst, Responsible AI Manager, AI Compliance Specialist, AI Risk Manager, Model Risk Manager, Technology Risk Consultant, AI Assurance Consultant, AI Product Compliance Manager, or GRC roles with an AI focus. Sometimes AI is not even in the title. You may also see Digital Compliance Manager, Data Governance Lead, IT Risk Manager, Regulatory Affairs Manager. Then you open the job description and suddenly see the EU AI Act, Model Risk, Governance Frameworks, or ISO 42001. So search by responsibility, not by title. Include useful keywords like EU AI Act, Model Risk, Technology Risk, AI Compliance, Responsible AI, ISO 42001. Not only by title, include useful keywords like EU AI Act, Model Risk, Technology Risk, AI Compliance, Responsible AI, ISO 42001, and in German, KI Governance, KI Compliance, KI Risiko Management, Model Risiko, Digitale Regulierung. That one change in search strategy can show you a much larger part of the market. Where are the opportunities? Consulting is one obvious area. Companies like Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, EY, Accenture, IBM, Capgemini, and specialist risk consultancies. These companies help other companies to build governance structures and understand new requirements that can make consulting a practical entry route. Then there is banking and insurance. These industries already live with audits, regulation, model validation, and risk frameworks. So adding AI governance is not completely foreign. Healthcare and pharmaceuticals are also interesting. Documentation and validation already matter there. And then manufacturing and automotive. This is where I think many engineers underestimate themselves. If you have worked with FMEA, validation plans, technical documentation, audits, quality systems, or change management, you already understand controlled processes. You are not starting from zero. You are applying familiar thinking to a new type of system. Software companies also need this expertise, especially if they sell technology into the European market. And over time, testing and certification could become another serious niche in Germany. What about salary? Now the part everyone wants to know. How much does this actually pay? So the market is still young. So salary data is not as clean as software engineering or traditional compliance. But broadly speaking, junior and analyst roles may sit around 55 to 70,000 euros gross per year. People with relevant experience may lead around 70 to 95,000 euros per year. Senior specialists and managers can move into roughly 90 to 130,000 euros per year. Lead and highly specialized roles can go even higher. But there is one thing I would be careful about. You may see someone earning 130,000 euros per year, then the internet turns that into AI governance pays 130k. That misses the point. That person may have 10 or 15 years of experience. They may understand banking, cybersecurity, regulation, product safety. The company is paying for judgment, not just for the title. That difference matters. Frankfurt can be strong for finance and risk, Munich for automotive, insurance, technology, and consulting. Berlin often has more international teams. So yes, the salaries can be attractive, but this is not an automatic salary upgrade. Now who can do the transition? This is probably the most useful part of the video because many people watching already have something valuable. If you work in privacy or GDPR, you understand documentation, personal data, and legal obligations. Your gap is probably in technical understanding. If you work in cybersecurity or GRC, you already understand controls, incidents, audits, and risk assessments. That is a strong base. If you are a lawyer or compliance professional, you understand regulation, but you need enough technical knowledge to sit with engineers and follow the discussion. If you are a data scientist or machine learning engineer, you already understand the system. Your gap may be regulation, governance, and business risk. If you come from automotive, quality, product safety, or medical devices, your experience may be more relevant than you think. Validation, traceability, standards, audits, risk management. You already speak that language. Product managers can transition too. You already sit between business and technology. HR professional may find opportunities around recruitment and workplace systems. The strongest profile is normally not "I do AI governance." It is more specific: AI governance plus cybersecurity, AI governance plus privacy, AI governance plus banking, AI governance plus automotive quality, AI governance plus healthcare. That combination gives an employer a much cleaner reason to hire you. Now, do you need coding? For many roles, no, but that does not mean you can ignore the technology. You should understand what training data is, how a model produces an output, what does BIOS mean, what model drift means, what an API does, why logging matters, why access control matters, and where human oversight comes in. You do not need advanced mathematics, but you should be able to ask good questions. Where did the data come from? How was the system tested? Can someone override the result? Who monitors it? What gets logged? Who is responsible when it fails? You may not build the system, but you need to understand enough to challenge it. Do you need German? English-speaking roles do exist, especially in international companies and global teams. But German gives you wider market. B1 or B2 already helps. If you deal with regulators, work councils, German clients, or legal interpretations, stronger German becomes much more important. So I would not wait until your German is perfect before applying. But I also would not build a long-term career in Germany around avoiding German completely. That eventually limits you. Now, which certifications make sense? One recognized option is AIGP from IAPP. Then you have ISO 42001. People coming from privacy may already have CIPP-E or CIPM. Cybersecurity and audit professionals may already have ISO 27001, CISA or CRISC. Those qualifications still matter, but this is where people often get stuck. They keep studying. One course becomes two becomes 5. 6 months later, the LinkedIn profile is full of badges. But there is still nothing practical to discuss in an interview. Do not fall into that loop. One good certification plus one serious case study can be much stronger. So now, as promised, a practical 6 months roadmap. By the way, thanks for watching the video till here. If you find it useful, don't forget to subscribe. If I were moving into this field today, I would keep it simple. Month 1, understand how modern systems work at a business level. Training data, testing, deployment, monitoring, failure points. Month 2, study the EU AI Act properly. Focus on risk categories, high-risk systems, provider and deployer responsibilities, transparency, and human oversight. Also understand how it connects with GDPR. Month 3, learn one governance framework. ISO 42001 is one option. The NIST AI Risk Management Framework is another useful reference. Month 4, build one realistic case study. Take a recruitment system, document the purpose, identify the data, assess the risk, define human oversight, create a supplier questionnaire, write a short incident process. Now you have something practical to discuss in an interview. Now the month 5. Connect the subject to your existing career. Cybersecurity, build a security control assessment. If you are in HR, review a recruitment system. Automotive quality, create a validation approach. If you are in legal, prepare a compliance assessment. Product management, design an approval workflow. Your previous experience is not baggage. It is your biggest advantage. Now the month 6. Start applying. Look beyond one job title. Technology risk, compliance, data governance, model risk, digital regulation, assurance, product compliance, and start talking to people already doing the work. Make a screenshot, it will be helpful for you to follow. And do not ask, are you hiring? Instead of that, ask, what problem is your team trying to solve right now? That tells you much more about where the market is going. And then what happens until 2030? I would not obsess over whether the exact title AI Governance Manager becomes huge. The titles change. The responsibility does not. Some companies will build dedicated teams. Others will keep this work inside compliance, cybersecurity, legal, data governance, or risk. The bigger question is how many serious companies will be using AI by 2030 without needing someone to manage risk, responsibility, and compliance? Probably very few, because someone still has to ask, can we use this system? What evidence do we need? What risk are we accepting? Where must a human stay involved? And who signs off? Those questions are not going away. So AI governance is not a rescue plan for a weak profile. One certification will not turn you into a senior specialist. Experience still matters a lot. But if you already work in technology, cybersecurity, law, compliance, privacy, quality, HR, data, or product management, this can be a logical next move. You may not need to restart your career. You may simply need to reposition what you already know. And that is probably the bigger opportunity here. For the last few years, most people have been asking, what can this technology do? Companies now also have to ask, what are we allowed to do with it? Who controls it? Who takes responsibility? And who is willing to question the system before the mistakes becomes expensive? That is where this career starts becoming interesting. If you work in one of these fields, tell me your current profession in the comments. IT, engineering, HR, cybersecurity, legal, compliance, quality, or data. I want to see which backgrounds are most common. Then I can make the next video around the transition that actually helps you. Thank you for watching the video till the end. See you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.